Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the channel. Today, we are facing one of the most alarming urban survival crises of the modern era. A disaster so quiet, so invisible, yet so powerful that it threatens to shut down an entire megacity. Iran's largest water transmission line is gone. Tehran, a city of more than 15 million people, is now staring at the unthinkable mass water shortages so severe that evacuation is no longer a rumor, but a real contingency being discussed behind closed doors. This is not a distant future scenario. This is happening now, and the consequences could reshape Iran's society, economy, and regional stability for years to come. Tehran has always lived on borrowed water. Built in the shadow of mountains, far from major rivers, the city expanded faster than its natural resources could support. For decades, Iran relied on a complex system of dams, reservoirs, underground aquifers, and massive pipelines to keep the capital alive. These water lines were not just infrastructure, they were lifelines. One of the largest among them, responsible for supplying a significant portion of Tehran's daily water needs, has now collapsed due to a combination of aging infrastructure, land subsidence, drought, and mismanagement. To understand how serious this is, we need to understand scale. Tehran consumes billions of liters of water every single day. Homes, hospitals, factories, power plants, schools, military facilities, everything depends on a continuous flow. When even a small percentage of that supply is interrupted, pressure drops instantly across entire districts. Now imagine what happens when a main artery fails. Entire neighborhoods go dry, water tanks empty, pumps stop working, and panic spreads faster than any official announcement. Iran has been facing a water crisis for years, but this moment marks a turning point. Climate change has reduced snowfall in the Alborz Mountains, where Tehran gets much of its water. Rainfall patterns have become unpredictable. Reservoirs that once held years of supply are now dangerously low. At the same time, land subsidence caused by excessive groundwater extraction has damaged pipelines beneath the city. In some areas, the ground has sunk by more than 30 centimeters per year. Pipes crack, pressure systems fail, and repairs become nearly impossible without shutting down entire sections of the network. Officials initially tried to downplay the situation. Statements spoke of temporary disruptions and maintenance issues, but residents knew better. Faucets ran dry for hours, then days. Water trucks appeared in neighborhoods that had never seen them before. Long lines formed under the sun as people filled containers, unsure when the next delivery would come. Hospitals were forced to ration water. Schools closed. Industrial production slowed as factories struggled to operate without a stable supply. Behind the scenes, emergency meetings were held. The question was no longer how to fix the pipeline quickly. Engineers knew repairs could take months, not days. The real question became how to keep a city of 15 million alive with a fraction of its required water. And that's where the word evacuation entered the conversation. Mass evacuation is a term rarely used lightly. Moving millions of people is a logistical nightmare even in wealthy, stable countries. In Iran's case, under sanctions, economic pressure, and political tension, it becomes exponentially harder. Where would people go? How would food, shelter, and medical care be provided? How long could such a displacement last? And what happens if people refuse to leave? Water scarcity has a unique psychological impact. Electricity outages are frustrating. Fuel shortages are disruptive. But water shortages trigger fear at a primal level. Without water, nothing functions. Hygiene collapses, disease spreads, food preparation becomes dangerous, firefighting becomes impossible. A city without water is not just uncomfortable, it is uninhabitable. Tehran's vulnerability is the result of decades of policy choices. Instead of decentralizing population and industry, Iran concentrated power, resources, and people in its capital. Tehran grew vertically and horizontally, swallowing surrounding towns and farmland. Water demand skyrocketed, but supply remained limited. Dams were built aggressively, rivers were diverted, and aquifers were drained faster than nature could replenish them. For years, scientists warned that this path was unsustainable. Those warnings were ignored. Now the consequences are unavoidable. The loss of a major water line is not an isolated failure. It exposes the fragility of the entire system. Engineers warned that other pipelines, built in the same era and under the same conditions, could fail next. Each repair weakens surrounding infrastructure. Each emergency fix buys time, but does not solve the underlying problem. For ordinary citizens, the crisis has already changed daily life. Families wake up at dawn to store water before pressure drops. Rooftop tanks are guarded like treasure. Social tensions rise as neighbors accuse each other of hoarding. Prices of bottled water have surged, placing an unbearable burden on low-income households. For the poor, water scarcity is not an inconvenience, it is a daily struggle for survival. The health risks are enormous. Without reliable water, sanitation systems fail. Sewage backs up. Contaminated water sources are used out of desperation. Hospitals face increased infection rates. Children and the elderly are especially vulnerable. In the summer heat, dehydration becomes a silent killer. Public health officials fear outbreaks of waterborne diseases that could overwhelm an already strained healthcare system. Politically, the crisis is explosive. Water protests have erupted in other Iranian cities before, sometimes turning violent. In Tehran, the stakes are even higher. The capital is not just a city, it is the heart of Iran's political power. Prolonged water shortages could trigger mass unrest, challenging the government's ability to maintain order. Security forces are already on alert, guarding key facilities and water distribution points. Internationally, the situation raises serious concerns. A destabilized Tehran would send shockwaves across the region. Iran is a major geopolitical player. Internal collapse or mass displacement could affect neighboring countries, energy markets, and regional security dynamics. Humanitarian organizations quietly prepare for worst-case scenarios, even as official channels remain cautious. Some officials argue that emergency measures can prevent evacuation. Water rationing, reduced industrial use, pressure management, and temporary pipelines are being implemented. Desalination projects are mentioned, but these take years, not months, and require enormous energy resources. Importing water is logistically and politically complex. Cloud seeding offers no guarantees. In reality, there is no quick fix. Others believe evacuation may become inevitable if conditions worsen. Not a full evacuation of the entire city, but targeted relocation of vulnerable populations, children, elderly, hospital patients, to areas with more stable water supplies. Even this limited approach would be unprecedented in Iran's modern history. The human stories behind the statistics are heartbreaking. Parents wondering how to keep their children clean and safe. Doctors choosing which procedures can proceed without enough water. Small business owners watching their livelihoods disappear. Students losing access to education. For millions, the future has become uncertain overnight. This crisis also forces a deeper question. Can megacities survive in a warming world? Tehran is not alone. Cities from Cape Town to Chennai, from Mexico City to Los Angeles, face similar threats. Water scarcity is no longer a theoretical risk. It is a present reality, reshaping where and how humans can live. Iran's water crisis is a warning to the world. Infrastructure built for the past cannot support the future. Climate change, population growth, and political inertia form a dangerous combination. When water systems fail, everything else follows. As night falls over Tehran, lights still shine, traffic still moves, and life appears normal on the surface. But beneath the streets, cracked pipes and empty channels tell a different story. A story of a city running out of time. The loss of Iran's largest waterline is more than an engineering failure. It is a moment of reckoning for Tehran, for Iran, and for every city that believes it can defy nature without consequence. What happens next will depend on decisions made in the coming days and weeks. Will authorities acknowledge the full scale of the crisis? Will long-term reforms replace short-term fixes? Or will denial and delay push the city toward an irreversible tipping point? One thing is certain: water, the most basic element of life, has become Tehran's greatest vulnerability. And until that vulnerability is addressed, the threat of mass evacuation will remain hanging over the city like a shadow. Stay with us as we continue to follow this developing crisis, bringing you the facts, the context, and the human stories behind the headlines. Because what is happening in Tehran today could be a preview of what many cities around the world may face tomorrow.